Good afternoon and welcome to the conference. If you're joining us, we have what will be an instructive and engaging presentation by Renee Adair, who is joining us from Australia. The topic of her talk is what the heck is a doula and why do we need them? But before I introduce Renee, just a couple of items for our attention. If you are joining this particular session and you've had to forego another session, don't worry, everything's being recorded, and after the conference you'll be able to enjoy the whole conference all over again in recorded version. If you have questions for Renee or observations or comments, you may do so after the presentation. We'll leave several minutes at the end of the presentation for your remarks, and you can do so. You can enter those remarks through the Q&A function in your Zoom dashboard. If you don't have a Q&A, the chat looks like it has been opened, so you can use chat. So Renee Adair is the founder and director of the Australian Doula College, the Groundwork Program, and the ADC's charity arm, Doula Heart Network. She first began working with women and babies in 1994 as a masseuse, aromatherapist, and Reiki practitioner, and in 1998, after the home births of her two children, began studying and working as a doula and childbirth and early parenting educator. She is also a qualified end-of-life doula and grief educator. Working in collaboration, Renee helped produce the first research on doulas in Australia, which was published in the Journal of Perinatal Education in 2013. Renee wrote and still presents the only Australian government accredited doula training under the college banner, and is a regular contributor to a variety of publications, websites, podcasts, and radio programs. Renee and the college proudly partner with Charles Darwin University to co-facilitate accredited doula training for Indigenous women in a remote First Nations community. Welcome, Renee. The virtual floor is all yours.
Thank you so much for that big welcome, Jonathan. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching today. It's a great pleasure to be here and to talk my passion, which is doulas. I am going to start to sort my PowerPoint presentation out for you. There we go. Please pop any questions that you might have into the chat, and I'm very happy to answer questions. I'll leave about 15 minutes at the end for a bit of Q&A. So what exactly is a doula? I myself have been a doula for about 24 years, and I have extensive experience attending births and end-of-life gigs with that hat on. So I hope to share some information with you today that gets you thinking about why we need doulas in all systems, I think, across the globe. I just want to touch on pregnancy and birth. And I think in today's culture around the world, we think about it as one dimension, that it is a physical event, really. But pregnancy and childbirth, as I'm sure you will agree, is an emotional and spiritual event in a person's life. And it has an incredible opportunity to transform themselves, you know, their life and their partner's life. And I think we've lost the fact that it is, in fact, a very important rite of passage. So what is a doula exactly? So a doula is a birth attendant and was traditionally always a woman, offering non-medical support and information to parents throughout pregnancy, childbirth, and the postpartum period. The word doula came from a Greek word, which in correct translation actually means slave, but it has come to mean to serve or to be with women. At the college, we prefer to serve because we work in lots of different avenues, not just birth and postnatally. So the role of the doula in modern maternity care does vary from country to country, but essentially I think we all agree that it is providing women and their partners with continuity of care that most people are not afforded in the systems that they're having their babies in today. We provide support and information so that parents can navigate that system. And our job is to see families step into parenting positively, confidently, and emotionally intact. As I'm sure some of you may know, in your countries, in various countries, postnatal depression rates are really very, very high. Here in Australia, we have an extraordinary rate of postnatal depression, and research has shown us that those numbers are directly linked to how women are feeling after the birth of their children. So the actual, the birth, the labor and birth, how they're treated. We're sending a lot of women home traumatized. They may not have seen the same person twice. They may have received an intervention that they weren't expecting that might not have been explained properly. And it's just not good enough, really. I feel like we have lost the thought that the woman who is giving birth, the person who is giving birth, is on this spiritual event, having a massive transformation in her life. All the focus today in many spaces is all on the baby, and we've forgotten to nurture the mother, to mother her. And that's a very large part of our job. There's been many reviews and papers written, and you can go to the Cochrane Review, around continuous support for women and the difference that it makes. And we do know that having someone allocated for continuous support, women are more likely to have a spontaneous vaginal birth. They're less likely to have an instrument-aided delivery or a cesarean section, and they're less likely to have an anesthesia, say, for example, an epidural, and the baby actually fares better, which is quite remarkable, actually. When you think about time and history, women have always supported each other in birth. The wise woman of the village would be the one that would come if you were birthing or dying, and that person knew your family. There was some continuity there. There was someone who cared about your emotional needs. And really, I think that's how doulas have transpired. Benefits of having a trained doula are very clear, and this is great research that was undertaken in the US actually many years ago. And strikingly, the benefits were that there's a 50% reduction in a cesarean rate, and we know globally that cesareans are absolutely off the charts. Our rate here in Australia on average is 33% of women having cesareans, which is extraordinarily high and unnecessary. 25% shorter labour, 60% reduction in women asking for epidurals, 40% reduction in oxytocin, so Pitocin for those of you in the United States, a 30% reduction in other analgesia, and a 40% reduction in a forceps delivery. We do know also that by having a trained doula with you, that it can improve breastfeeding, it does decrease an incidence in postpartum depression, maternal satisfaction and paternal, I would have to say, satisfaction, and better mother-infant interaction. Pretty amazing stats. So if they're the benefits of having a trained doula, what does training look like across the globe? Well, it certainly does vary, and it varies within each country. I am on a lot of social media sites and get to see various training organizations, and we do a lot of research so that we kind of know that what our standards are here at the Australian Doula College. In here in Australia, you can actually do anything from an online, just a short online course or a weekend workshop, right up to our government accredited certificate for in doula support services. And to our knowledge, the best of our knowledge, it is the most comprehensive doula training in the world. Saying that, because we are an unregulated industry, it is possible actually to call yourself a doula and not have done any training at all, much to my horror. So generally speaking, how we work is we offer a base package to people, a doula package, and we offer an obligation-free interview. So someone would call us, call the college, or contact me directly through my own personal website or social media platforms. I would go spend about an hour with them and find out what it is that they're wanting from their birthing experience and their immediate postnatal experience, what's important to them. Then I would do 3 long visits in their home, a couple of hours each, getting to build rapport, getting to understand again what it is that they want. We build a birth plan or wish list, which is my guide for them within the hospital, a home birth or birth centre, wherever they're choosing to have their babies, or even the theatre. Sometimes I will support women who are choosing to have a caesarean section. So we will talk about the needs in that space. We talk about options and choices so that people can make a truly informed decision prior to attending the labour and birth. I go on call for my clients from 38 weeks gestation, so they can call me 24 hours, 7 days a week prior to the labour and birth with any questions or concerns. Maybe they think their water is broken, or, they haven't felt the baby move as much, or whatever it might be. So we talk through that scenario at the time and decide whether they should see their major care provider, or whether I should come home, labour with them at home for a little bit, or I could meet them at the hospital. I attend the labour and birth, and it doesn't matter how long that is. Doulas do not do a shift change. So there's continuity of care right there. Sometimes parents, daunting first time around, incredibly daunting. You might see 3 or 4 or 5 different midwives, nurse midwives, doctors, OBs within the context of one experience, one labour and birth. That's a lot of people that you have to repeat your story to and see, particularly in a space where we know that women really do require privacy, quiet and calm in order to allow the oxytocin to keep flowing so that labour keeps ticking over. I do 2 postnatal visits in the home, and many doulas offer add-on services such as belly casting, pregnancy massage, or even placental encapsulation. And some doulas, including myself, also offer a standalone postnatal package, and that is a very individual scenario that we work with the parents together and decide when they need us, how we might be best able to help. Is that breastfeeding, bottle feeding, sleep and settle? We debrief births. Lighthouse duties are possible. Some of our doulas prepare and cook meals. It's a great service, actually, when you've had your baby. It certainly takes a village. And I think today, in many cultures around the world, we have lost that village. Particularly, I can speak truthfully to Australia here. We're a very multicultural country. We have a lot of people displaced from families, and they're on their own, particularly in the last few years with COVID. It's been striking, actually, how many parents have been, managing that immediate postpartum period on their own. So postnatal doulas have been very, very busy indeed. So who chooses to have a doula with them? Definitely a variety of people. First timers will perhaps have read something about a doula or spoken to a friend who's had a doula, so they will chime in and get a doula for themselves. Someone who has had a doula for a previous birth or postnatally would definitely have one again. Someone having a VBAC, so a vaginal birth after a cesarean section, previous birth trauma or postnatal depression. Often those women will be seeking extra support aside from their primary care provider. Perhaps someone who doesn't have partner support, or perhaps has acknowledged that maybe their partner also needs support. And I love supporting partners as much as I do the women through their journey into parenthood. I think that the pendulum has swung so far the other direction with partners, and the expectation for them to be in the birthing space and have all the knowledge that they need to support their partners themselves, but they're in that experience also. It's deeply emotional for them too, so it can be really hectic for them, and it's great to be there to be able to support them, help them, provide them with the information that they need to also make informed decisions, show them how to massage their partner in the labour, offering suggestions to them about how to be the best support. Sibling support is a gorgeous job. Some people, particularly at home births, will have siblings present. It's really nice to have a doula there present for their needs and to support and inform them as well. General emotional support is often why people will choose us. I know that globally obstetrics and OB/GYN care has increased dramatically. Also here in Australia, often those appointments are no more than 10 minutes long. In our public health system here, you get 10 minutes with your midwife. There's not a lot of time given today for those care providers to address emotional needs for the woman. So women and again their partners will look to us for that emotional support and guidance. Different cultural birthing practices, language. If English is not their first language, people will often seek out a doula who is from their own religion, faith, or can speak their language. And we have just about every one I can imagine on our books, which is exciting. And people's need for continuity of care. Excuse me, it's early in the morning here. I haven't had a coffee yet. That need, particularly if someone has already had a baby and they understand the system and know that that's not really afforded to them, they would definitely look out for a doula and want that support. There's lots of assumptions made about doulas, and like any industry, we are not all the same. We're varied, that is for sure. One thing is that's important to me is that we are not about natural birth at all costs. I think that's really important. There are assumptions that we do not support women who want to use drugs in labour, that we're not professionally trained, that we're, sort of there to take over the experience, or that we have a need to protect the labouring woman from the midwives and doctors or nurse midwives and OBs, that we think cesareans are all unnecessary and evil, that we believe that birth plans and our wish lists that we create are a gospel, that that's the only way forward, and that we think that we've got the knowledge of doctors and midwives, and we simply do not. And I think some of those general assumptions I know can give doulas a bit of a bad name across the board. Some concerning doulas will actually give us, the rest of us, a bad name. They do judge women's choices. They might judge their feelings. They seem to appear not to really want to work as a team. So a big part of my job is definitely making sure that I know the limitations to my service and that I'm working with the woman's and her partners, the birthing person's, team of medical people. I remember that, I'm there to honor their wishes. Some of those concerning doulas will practice outside of their scope. For example, here in Australia, we have doulas, and I know in the United States, I have friends there that are doulas. Some doulas will do vaginal examinations, which is a massive no-no. They will listen to fetal hearts, and some will, which is actually illegal here, is carry like Syntocin on Pitocin with them, which is, it's illegal here. Carrying their own agendas and feeling the need to rescue their client from the experience. So that is me at a home birth some years ago now. That Kelly, who's in the photograph, is also a doula and has gone on to be a midwife herself. Happy International Midwives Day to all our midwives out there who are listening. I love that doulas and midwives are working together to make sure that women and the birthing person and their partners are at the center of the best care that they can receive so that they have a great experience. So what does healthy doula support actually look like? So definitely always at the top of my list is that we are non-judgmental, that we actively listen and validate our clients' belief systems and their emotions. Really important. That we offer good information, up-to-date information, honest information, and support to assist our clients with informed decision-making and consent, and also the right to refusal. We have such high intervention rates across the globe in birth. Labor and birth has become over medicalized. It's quite shocking to me, actually, that the rates, how they've risen since I first started working as a doula. It's absolutely alarming, and we should all be alarmed. Birth doesn't happen by the clock. It needs time, and it requires energy and care and love and attention and nurturing. It doesn't require us to rescue women from the experience. Healthy doulas will allow freedom of expression and speech and movement. And again, we have a strong team approach, working with our partners, remaining respectful of primary care providers, and offering practical and physical support to everybody in that space, actually. So over the years, the college has supported generally thousands and thousands of families. I myself have achieved around 500 births in my career. I do fewer and fewer at the moment due to managing the college, but it's nice to know that we get such great feedback from people. I'll just read a couple out. This person said, "Amazing, I had the most positive birth, even a posterior baby causing the worst pain I've ever experienced over 18 hours did not affect the overall experience. I was 100% supported before, during, and after the birth." Cool. The birth was a very positive experience in spite of my emergency cesarean. This was mainly due to the doula calming and experienced presence. So how amazing to think that someone who has experienced an unexpected outcome still thought they had a great experience. That for me is profound, particularly when we go back to what I was saying very early on, where we're sending women and their partners home, often extremely traumatized, after what should be one of the most memorable days of their lives. You know, we carry our birth stories with us in our hearts every day for the rest of our lives. And that's deserving for everybody in that space to remember that the woman, the birthing person, and her partner should be emotionally held on that day for that very reason, if not that just alone. I love this photograph. This is one of the first births that I attended in the first couple of years. Well, in the first, it was definitely not the first, but it was the first in the first 12 months, I think, that I was practicing. I certainly look a bit younger there in the corner. And this lovely lady had her sister and husband in the space. And there she is, chilling out, relaxing in the bath. It wasn't too long after that she birthed her baby. She had a beautiful, beautiful water birth. Sometimes it's nice just to sit in that space where she is having a break in between surges, contractions, and just being held by the women in the space. It's quite a profound and beautiful photograph, actually. So, in the words from the video Giving Birth, Challenges and Choices by the gorgeous Suzanne Arms, if a doula were a drug, it would certainly be unethical not to use it. So I am going to open the floor up for any questions anyone may have on doulas around the globe, or if you have some input about what you might know and understand about doulas around the globe, it'd be great to have a yarn.
If you have a question for Renee or a comment, observation, just put it in the Q&A or the chat. So, well, I'll start us off while people are coming up with their questions. Where do you see the practice of using a doula? Where do you see the future of this practice? You know, you said you were alarmed by the continuing growth of medicalization of the birth process.
Yeah.
What does that portend for someone in your profession and others, obviously? Is it a growing challenge to gain acceptance? What do you see is happening in the next 10, 20 years?
I think that's a good question. I feel that the need for doulas has grown exponentially, and I feel very strongly that until we can perhaps flip the maternity healthcare system on its head, that doulas are going to be required more and more and more. Yeah, I feel like women are pushed through like a conveyor belt system, if you like, through public health and private institutions. And, you know, we are missing the rite of passage. We're missing the context of family. And we need doula support to bring back that passion and remind us of the rite of passage, remind us of the beauty, the spirituality of birth. You know, some of the women here in Australia are diagnosed with PTSD, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder, which, you know, is labeled, we give that label to people who are at war, you know, they're literally in the fields killing one another. And that is alarming to me. And so until we can look, I think, postnatally and say, wow, we're doing much better. The postnatal depression rates are coming down. Women are feeling better about their birth experiences. Then I think I'll still be working. You know, I think it's important. I can see that Samantha Jean has popped a question in,
Yeah. Well,
which is a big one to discuss actually, and it says, "What are your thoughts about the acceptance of doulas by the medical establishment?" Yeah. So, look, that is varied, I have to say. When I first started doulaing 24 years ago, it wasn't an issue. We didn't even use the word doula then. I was a birthing companion, and I think possibly not so much of a threat. I think today with litigation, sometimes, medical people in the room perhaps don't want us there because we might see or do or say something that is not welcomed. I think too, the fact that we can empower clients to make informed decisions and maybe sometimes say no, not give their consent to perhaps an intervention that is being pushed towards them, can all, put noses out of joint, put the medical profession out of joint. I feel that here in Australia, I know more and more midwives are appreciative of doulas in the space. In some states and territories, it does vary about numbers with continuity of care, but here in New South Wales, where I live, in some public hospitals, the ratio is 1 midwife to 3 birthing women. So when you think about that, you would want an extra pair of hands in the room, someone who understands birth and can be present and offer continuity care with the birthing person. You would want someone there, right? So I think midwives are looking more towards doula support, which is great. And a lot of doulas go on and become midwives, which is also very cool. So when a doula walks into the room, they appreciate that. Recently, over the last couple of years with COVID, it was very difficult to get into births because of the fact that only partners were allowed. So we cut down on support there, but we did work really well with clients before and after being in the birthing space. I think there's a lot more we can do to help the medical profession understand what it is that we do. I think sometimes there's a misconception about what we do. So I spend a lot of time going around doing in-services in hospitals here, talking about doula support, what it is that we do and don't do, and help them understand that we don't do anything medical, because I think that is often a concern of theirs. Hope that answers that question. I'm sure that it varies around the world in terms of how we're welcomed or not sometimes.
Renee has Vera has a question, and she writes, "Hi, I'm a doula in Toronto, Canada. I'm curious about the range of pay for a doula and if there are places that offer doulas for free. Do you know how they pay doulas or about those models?"
Hi, Vera. Nice to meet you virtually. Good question. Costs vary greatly with doula support. We offer our students for a fee of $400. You can have that package that I mentioned earlier on, with the obligation-free interview, 3 visits before the labour and birth, attendance of the labour and birth, and 2 postnatal visits. That's 400 Aussie dollars. And I charge $2,500 given all of my experience. Most doulas in Australia are around, vary, but sort of a price point is around the $1,500 mark, $1,800 mark for an experienced doula. We have a charity arm at the college called the Doula Heart Network. So if you cannot afford a doula, in fact, all of our services are free of charge to women in need. So say, for example, we have partnerships with lots of social work departments in hospitals, refuges around Australia, and certain other charities and organisations that support refugees here in Australia. So they will pick up the phone to us and say, hey, we have someone that can't afford a doula. They might need extra support before or after the birth as well. Can you help us out? So we have a large membership base, and they will often put their hands up to offer doula support for free, or one of our student doulas will be offered free of charge. I think it's important that it's not cost prohibitive, that, you know, that this service is available to anyone who needs it. Particularly, I think those that need it are often the ones that can't afford it. So, yeah, agreed. Yeah, totally. Thanks, Vera.
Vera says agreed. Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Other questions, comments, observations? Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Come on forward.
We still have a few minutes left in the
Time.
in the
Yeah, shoot it through.
in the session.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Renee, you know, you've done a lot of public speaking about doulas, and you know, your college is a quite visible and public face of the practice and the profession. For people who don't know anything about doulas, what would be the one or two takeaways that you would want people to take away in any type of encounter with information about the practice? What would be the most essential and most important thing you would want us to remember about a doula?
Mm. I think most importantly, the take-home message is that we are able to walk alongside women and their partners and really highlight the transition and the incredible importance of moving through the journey into parenthood and really honoring that experience. Really giving them an opportunity to be heard, to feel, and to think through what it is that they want from the experience. Again, as I said, it is, you know, it is a story that stays with us in our hearts till the day we die. You never forget your baby's birthday, never. And, you know, I think that doulas can really impact the difference that parents can feel about that experience, whether or not they have some sort of unexpected outcome during that experience. And by offering that non-medical support, I can really highlight the beauty of what it really means to be a new mum or a new dad. And that is the passion that drives me, I think. It's really about creating a beautiful, loving landscape for families and providing a soft landing place for those new parents when they take that baby home and they have to care for that baby day in, day out, relentlessly. Relentlessly. I want them to know that they've done an incredible job to bring this baby earthside. And that's the message that I think doulas can give. Yeah.
Superb.
Mm.
Other questions, comments, statements? One of the emergent themes throughout many of the talks today has been the inequities and the disparities across not just cultural boundaries, but in terms of socioeconomic and racial boundaries in terms of reproductive rights and healthcare, and you know, pretty much everywhere you go in the world, you have these disparities. You know, in the U.S., for example, the concern is over the inequities between um, uh, the white population and the brown
Right.
and the black. In Canada, of course, you have this very pressing concern about the treatment of the First Nations, and I'm assuming that the same thing is true in Australia.
Yeah.
Um, um, what role? What role? Because we know, we have policymakers, we have politicians,
Yeah.
we have, professionals, lawyers, doctors. But what role, for example, can someone in your position play to even at the very most basic level to mitigate some of these inequities and what
Mm.
sort of positive things on a social level, an ethical level, on really any number of levels. Um, what can you do to contribute, in other words, to a better world?
To a better world. Yeah,
Yeah.
right on. I feel like we're here at the college. We are partnered with the university here, Charles Darwin University, and we are working on a great program training First Nations women to become doulas, which I think is, really helping. We have a massive inequity here with our First Nations people, as you do, and I believe as across the globe does. Health outcomes are very poor. They're not supported. Their languages are not known. In the remote Aboriginal communities that I work in, women are flown off country. They have to leave their homes in order to have their babies, so they're away from family, their language, their tucker, their food. It's heart-wrenching. So I feel like half of the job that we can do is to actually train First Nations women here to care for themselves with a doula hat on, if you like. I think that's very important. I feel like offering free services for doula support to women and families who cannot afford it, who are often the ones that need it the most. That, again, as I spoke about earlier, English is not their first language, or they might be refugees here, or whatever the case may be. Really making that support available and easy to find is really important. Doulas can play a massive part, in that inequity. Often I find that it's the young people, or the people who, when English is not their first language, they're having obstetrics practiced on them because they don't understand they can say no. So helping them find that voice, helping them understand the system that they're birthing their babies in, is a massive part of our job, and a big part of how doulas can really help change that landscape and bring more equality into the birthing space, for sure, and maternity health care across the board. Mm.
Thank you. That was a very
Mm.
comprehensive answer. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Other
welcome.
questions, other comments? We still have about 15 minutes left in the session. Let's use it productively. If you have any
Please.
comments, put them in the Q&A,
Mm.
or send the message through chat. I'm sure Renee would be happy to answer your questions, to entertain
Absolutely.
your thought. Well, look, while we're waiting for people to formulate their ideas, I was just curious, because in your biography, you seem to be also involved in palliative care.
I am.
And I'm wondering if if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about what that involves,
Mm.
because I'm
Yeah.
curious about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess for us here at the college, we saw the need over many years, to just flip the idea of doula support and be able to use that skill set across a landscape of life's transitions, birth, death. We also have abortion doulas. I'm working on a fertility program so that doulas can walk beside families who are trying to become pregnant. I feel like, we here in Australia, and I'm sure in the United States and across the globe, birth and death are our major life's transitions, but we seem to have lost our way with how we treat people in those spaces, in the same way that I feel like there's inequities and, policies made by the fear of litigation, brought by the fear of litigation in birth. It's the same as happening in end of life. Here in Australia, we know that a large majority, I think it's 74%, want to die at home, but only about 12% are doing so because we don't have the support to do that. Many people are dying in hospital, people are dying alone, people don't understand their rights and their options and choices. So in the same way that we would use a doula in maternity healthcare, we've started using doulas in end-of-life care. So the doula is hired either by the dying person or can be hired by one of the loved ones who is walking alongside that family member. Again, primarily for emotional support. We don't do anything medical. We don't administer drugs at end of life. We can help people advocate and really find out what it is that they want, again, from that experience. Because, I want to say it is really possible to have a good death. It is possible to feel held and not be frightened and not be in pain. It's possible to have family with you entirely along the way, and for them, often I feel like the best work that we do in that space is often for them. Often the person who's dying is not as traumatized as the people that are around them, that are seeing that person go. Having to say goodbye is really hard. So having a doula there to hold that space is, again, deeply profound. And we are getting more and more requests for end-of-life doulas. Certainly in terms of our training, it's gone up exponentially. Training end-of-life doulas has gone crazy. Actually, it's a bit nuts, but it's great. I want to see doulas used in a variety of spaces. I don't feel like there's any limitation to where we can pick up our skill set and move to. The abortion doula work that we're doing is really important and very critical, particularly for women who are having late terminations, because they may have found out after scans and tests at 16 weeks, 18-week gestation that their baby might not be fit for life. So it's really important to have people walking alongside you in these massive life transitions. That's not medical, that really sees you, that can sit in silence, that's not afraid to listen, not afraid to have the big questions answered. And I see the need for that all over the place every day. I think that doulas really have an opportunity to change the way we think and feel about a lot of life's transitions. And I'd like to see us in many more spaces, actually. But the end of life stuff is really, I'm very passionate about it. And I possibly started doing that first, but never labeled it, really. I'm a child of, I was born in 1965 and had lots of gay friends in the 80s, and sadly through living through the AIDS epidemic, and sat and held the hands of lots of dying, beautiful young men who were my friends. And, that taught me so much and gave me so much insight about life and the systems that we're in when we're born and when we die. I think there's a great scope to really empower communities to bring birth and death back into the home where we've dragged it out of. Many cultures around the world, they do death and end of life so much better than we do. It's become so feared in the same way that birth has. And, we're all going to die. We're all going to die, 100% guaranteed. There's no other way out. So I think that, yeah, we could definitely do it better, and doulas have an opportunity to really bring some change in that space.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Renee. Quite fascinating. Any other questions or statements, comments, any observations? Well, there are still 2 more hours to go in today's conference. There will be sessions at 5 o'clock and at 6 o'clock. So stick around. And as I said at the beginning of this session with Renee, that everything's being recorded. So don't feel that you have to wring your hands and choose one over the other and miss out. You'll be able to watch all of these at some point right after the conference. Everything is being recorded. Renee, I'd like to thank you again for joining us today. Intriguing and educational, informative, instructive. Just so much compassion in your work, and I'm so very impressed by what you do. Oh, there is one more comment. Thank you so much. Great talk, Samantha Jean says. Excellent. I agree. I agree. Excellent. Excellent. So I wish you the best of success with your endeavors, Renee, and keep up the great work, and have a great day, because you're just starting your day, and we're ending our day here in North America. All right, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.